I've never told this story to anyone, so that's my first time putting it out there. It all started when my sister called me up and suggested that her son, Peter, should come stay with me for a week. I hadn't seen him in like 5 years, and apparently he needed a break from his hectic college life. Peter had just turned 19, and his parents thought a week out in nature would do him some good. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, I hadn't seen him since he was the scrawny 14-year-old kid. Back then, he was all awkward smiles, shy, and constantly getting into trouble. Now, I had been openly gay for about 15 years, but this was my nephew we were talking about, so none of that seemed relevant at the time. When his parents pitched the idea, I thought, why not? It'd be nice to catch up, and my place was a peaceful getaway, perfect for someone who needed to unwind. Plus, Peter was coming from pretty far away, so I figured it'd be a good opportunity to reconnect. Maybe we'd hang out, crack open a few beers, and I could show him the nearby trails. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Little did I know what was coming. When Peter finally arrived, man, I was floored. The kid I remembered was long gone. Instead, this tall, built, incredibly handsome guy walked through my front door, and I'm not exaggerating when I say he could have been on the cover of GQ. I'm talking sharp jawline, broad shoulders, and an athletic build that made it clear he'd been hitting the gym regularly. His hair was perfectly styled, and he had this air of confidence about him that wasn't there 5 years ago. It took me a second to register that this was Peter, my nephew, the same kid I'd watched grow up, who used to run around in dirty sneakers and baggy shorts. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man, and frankly, a damn good-looking one. I had to mentally slap myself out of it. I mean, come on, this was family. But the transformation was so stark, I couldn't help but feel something shift inside me. For a brief moment, I had some thoughts that I knew I shouldn't be having. I quickly shook them off, told myself to get a grip. We greeted each other like family though. Gave him a hug, asked him about the drive, all that normal stuff. I could tell he was tired, but still full of that youthful energy that I vaguely remembered. His smile was different now, more relaxed, confident. It was surreal catching up with someone who had grown so much in 5 years, especially since I hadn't been in touch with him regularly. His parents would tell me bits and pieces about his life, but seeing it for myself, that was another thing entirely. I offered him a beer, which felt weird because the last time I saw him, he was just a kid. But here he was, 19, an adult now, so we cracked open a couple of cold ones and settled down on the porch. We started talking, and I tried to keep it casual, asked about college, his friends, what he'd been up to. I kept stealing glances at him though. I couldn't help but notice how, well, good he looked. His shirt hugged his chest just right, and when he leaned back in the chair, it rode up slightly, revealing just a hint of his abs. I kept telling myself to focus on the conversation, but my mind was racing. The small, awkward boy I remembered was gone, replaced by this absolute stunner, and it threw me off. We talked for a while, and honestly, Peter was really easy to talk to. Mature for his age, funny, and laid back. The beer helped loosen both of us up, and the conversation flowed smoothly, but I couldn't stop thinking about how damn attractive he was. I kept those thoughts buried deep though. This was Peter, my nephew. I told myself that over and over. Still, something about the way he smiled at me, the way his eyes caught mine, lingered in my head long after we called it a night. I had to remind myself where the line was. But damn, was it hard to ignore. Later that evening, after a couple more beers and some casual talk about life, I realized we were running low on groceries. Peter was still full of energy, but I could feel myself getting a little restless, so I decided to head to the store to pick up some stuff for dinner. I told Peter I'd be back in about 20 minutes, and he just nodded, saying he was going to chill out for a bit, maybe shower and relax. Cool, no big deal, right? I headed out, grabbed what we needed, and when I got back, the house was quiet. I figured Peter was still in the shower, so I dropped the groceries on the counter and started putting things away. As I walked down the hallway toward my room, I noticed something odd. The bathroom door wasn't fully closed. Now, the lock on the door had been broken for a while, and I'd been meaning to fix it, but I never got around to it. Still, Peter knew the door didn't fully shut unless you really slammed it. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to the sensation of something warm pressed against me. At first, I thought I was dreaming. My body felt heavy, and there was this strange warmth behind me, like someone was spooning me. I blinked, still half asleep, trying to shake the fog from my mind, and then it hit me. This wasn't a dream. Someone was in bed with me. My heart started racing. I was too scared to move, but then I felt it, a hand sliding across my side, pulling me closer. I froze. It was Peter. His body was pressed against mine, and his arm was wrapped around me, his hand resting on my stomach. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do, what to say. My mind was a whirlwind of panic and confusion, but before I could react, Peter's breath was on my neck, and he whispered in my ear. "I saw you peeking at me in the shower." My whole body tensed up. I was caught. There was no denying it. I thought he would be mad, disgusted even, but his voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Almost teasing. And then he said something that threw me completely off balance. I wanted it to. Those 4 words hit me like a truck. I couldn't process it. I'd spent all night feeling guilty, ashamed of what I'd done, but here he was, lying in bed with me, telling me that he'd wanted it too. My head was spinning, trying to make sense of it, but before I could even speak, Peter's hand started moving again, slowly, deliberately. His fingers trailed down my stomach, sending shivers through my entire body. I wanted to stop him. I knew I should, but I didn't. I couldn't. His touch was electric, and the way his body was pressed against mine, it was everything I'd been fantasizing about all night. His breath was hot against my neck, his lips brushing against my skin as he whispered again. "I've been thinking about this since I got here." My heart was pounding in my chest. I was still in shock, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. But my body? My body was responding in ways I couldn't control. I could feel him pressed against me, hard and eager, and I knew I was just as aroused. It was wrong. God, it was so wrong, but it felt so good. Peter's hands were exploring me now, moving with more confidence, more certainty. And I let him. I turned to face him, and for a moment, we just looked at each other. His eyes were dark, filled with something I hadn't seen before, desire, lust. It was like a switch had flipped, and all the barriers between us were gone. The tension that had been building all night was finally breaking, and there was no turning back. He leaned in, and our lips met. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant, like we were both testing the waters. But then it deepened, became more urgent, more intense. Our hands were everywhere, exploring each other's bodies, like we were discovering something forbidden but irresistible. His skin was warm under my touch, smooth and firm. I could feel every muscle, every curve, and it only made me want him more. We didn't speak after that. There were no words, just actions. We were both caught up in the moment, in the heat of it all. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before, intense, overwhelming, and utterly forbidden. But at that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was him and the way he made me feel. You've probably guessed by now what happened next, and yeah, it happened. Am I proud of it? No. But did I enjoy it? Hell yes. It was one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life, as wrong as that sounds. The feelings, the intensity of the moment, were like nothing I had ever felt before. We were crossing a line, sure, but in that moment, the line didn't even seem to matter. It was pure, raw, unfiltered passion. After Peter kissed me, everything just escalated. His hands roamed all over me, and mine did the same to him. It was like we were both caught in this whirlwind, unable, or maybe unwilling, to stop. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding, but my body was on autopilot, driven by something deeper than reason. The guilt and the taboo, they were still there, but they faded into the background. What took over was this primal need, this desire that neither of us could ignore. I'll admit it, being with him was intoxicating. The feel of his skin, warm and smooth under my fingers, the way he reacted to my touch, the way he made me feel. It was incredible. I've been openly gay for the last 15 years, but this was different. It wasn't just physical. It was like there was this deep, unspoken connection between us, one we'd both been denying until now. And once the dam broke, there was no holding back. Peter was eager, but surprisingly gentle at first, as if he was testing the waters, making sure I was okay with what was happening. But once he saw that I wasn't pulling away, that I wanted this as much as he did, things quickly heated up. Something in me, it wasn't intentional, I swear, made me slow down as I walked past the slightly ajar door. I don't know what came over me, but I found myself peeking. Just a quick glance, I told myself, what's the harm in that? And that's when I saw him. Peter was standing there, completely naked, water cascading down his body. His back was to me, so he hadn't noticed me at all. My breath caught in my throat. I knew I should have looked away. He was my nephew after all, but in that moment I couldn't. The sight of him, water glistening on his skin, sliding down the muscular curve of his back over his firm buttocks was breathtaking. He wasn't just attractive, he was beautiful. I was frozen in place, my eyes glued to him. Every muscle in his body seemed perfectly sculpted. His broad shoulders tapered down to a narrow waist, and his legs. Jesus, his legs were powerful, like those of a guy who knew his way around a gym. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my face getting hot. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. He was so perfect. Then, in the middle of rinsing his hair, Peter suddenly turned the shower off. That was enough to snap me out of whatever trance I was in. I quickly backed away, my heart still racing, and darted into my room like nothing had happened. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to calm down, but the image of Peter in the shower kept flashing in my mind. I felt guilty, dirty even. He was family, for God's sake, and I was ogling him like some pervert. But no matter how much I tried to shake the thought, it wouldn't leave. The sight of his naked body, the way the water had glistened on his skin, it was intoxicating. I couldn't get it out of my head. A few minutes later, Peter emerged from the bathroom, fully dressed and acting like nothing had happened. He shot me a smile and asked what was for dinner, like it was just any other normal evening. I couldn't believe how casual he was while I was still reeling from what I had just seen. I tried to play it cool, told him we'd cook something simple, but inside, I was a mess. My thoughts were spinning, and I couldn't focus on anything except the fact that I'd just spied on my nephew and liked it. That night was unlike any other. After we had dinner, Peter and I sat down to watch a movie. We weren't really paying much attention to it, at least I wasn't. My mind was racing, still caught up in what had happened earlier when I saw him in the shower. The guilt was eating me up, but at the same time, there was something else. This undeniable attraction I couldn't shake. I'd never felt anything like this before, especially not toward a family member. But here I was, sneaking glances at him while he sat there, casually scrolling on his phone, looking completely at ease. Every time he shifted on the couch, every little movement of his body drew my attention. His toned arms, the way his shirt clung to his chest, the outline of his muscles, I was hyper-aware of everything. It was like my senses were on overdrive, and no matter how much I tried to push it down, it just kept bubbling up. He was my nephew, but damn it, he was also a ridiculously attractive young man, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I told him I was going to head to bed early, hoping that some time away from him would give me a chance to clear my head. He just nodded, still distracted by whatever was on his phone, and said, "Cool, see you in the morning." I went to my room, but sleep wasn't going to come easy. I lay there in the dark, my mind replaying the image of Peter in the shower over and over again. I kept trying to remind myself that this was wrong, so wrong. He was family. But that didn't stop the thoughts, the fantasies. The way the water had dripped down his body, how his skin had looked under the soft light of the bathroom, his muscles flexing as he moved, it was burned into my brain. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours, trying to fight it, but it was no use. I knew what I needed to do. I hated myself for it, but I had to get it out of my system. So I gave in. I started thinking about him, about what I'd seen earlier in the shower, about what it would feel like to touch him, to feel his body pressed against mine. My hand moved before I could stop it. I imagined him standing there, water pouring down his chest, his skin slick and smooth under my touch. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, it was the only thing that could bring me relief. I don't know how long it lasted, but when I finally finished, I was exhausted. My body felt heavy, drained. I hoped that would be the end of it, that I could just fall asleep and forget about the whole thing. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe I'd be able to get a grip on myself. But as I drifted off, I had no idea what was about to happen. The way he touched me, the way his body responded to mine, it was like we were in sync, like we had both been waiting for this moment for longer than either of us realized. His lips traveled from mine to my neck, and every kiss, every touch sent shivers through me. I could feel the heat between us rising, and the more we gave in, the more we craved. His hands explored my body, tracing every line, every muscle, and it felt like my skin was on fire. I couldn't get enough of him. His breath was hot against my neck, his body pressing against mine, and I felt this overwhelming need to be closer to him, to feel every inch of him. We didn't stop. We couldn't. There was no going back, no second guessing. It was like the entire world had disappeared, and the only thing that existed was us, our bodies, our desires. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. We were lost in each other, in the thrill of it all, and the only thing that mattered was how good it felt. When it was over, we just lay there, breathing heavily, our bodies still tangled together. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Part of me felt guilty, ashamed even, but another part of me, the part that was still reeling from the pleasure, from the connection, was buzzing. It was hands down one of the most intense experiences I'd ever had, and I knew it was something I'd never forget. We didn't say much afterward, just exchanged a few looks, half questioning, half understanding. Peter smiled at me, this sort of lazy, satisfied grin that made my heart race all over again. It was like he knew exactly what had just happened between us, and he was just as exhilarated by it as I was. But as the high started to fade, reality crept back in. The guilt, the realization of what we'd done, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Peter was my nephew. This wasn't just some random hookup. It was wrong on so many levels. But at the same time, I couldn't deny that I'd wanted it, that I'd enjoyed it more than I probably should have. It was confusing, and I didn't know how to feel. Peter, though, didn't seem to share my internal conflict. He just gave me a knowing look, as if to say, yeah, we both wanted this. And maybe he was right. Maybe this had been building between us from the moment he walked through my door. I didn't know what to think anymore. But as wrong as it was, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end. There was this unspoken understanding between us now, this shared secret that neither of us wanted to let go of. And even though I felt guilty as hell, even though I knew it was wrong, I couldn't help but want more. The next morning, things felt different. We didn't talk about what happened the night before, not right away. Peter acted like everything was normal, but there was this unspoken tension between us, like we both knew something had changed. I tried to shake it off, convince myself that maybe it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness we both moved past. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. As the day went on, the atmosphere in the house shifted. There was this underlying electricity between us, something neither of us was addressing directly, but we both felt it. Every glance, every touch, no matter how innocent, was charged with a new kind of tension. Peter wasn't just my nephew anymore, he was something more, and that realization kept hitting me every time I saw him. By the afternoon, it was too much. I had to get out of the house for a bit, clear my head, so I suggested we go for a walk. Peter agreed, and we spent the next hour or so walking around the woods near my place, talking about everything and nothing. It felt good to get some fresh air, to step away from the house and the weight of what had happened inside. But even out there, in the open air, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time he smiled, every time he looked at me, I could feel that pull, the same one that had been there last night. By the time we got back to the house, the sun was starting to set. I went into the kitchen to start preparing dinner, trying to focus on something other than the growing tension between us. Peter followed me in, leaning casually against the counter, watching me with that same knowing look he'd had last night. The air between us felt thick, heavy, like something was about to happen again. As I chopped vegetables, Peter moved closer, standing just behind me. I could feel his presence, the heat radiating off his body. My hands stilled on the cutting board, and before I knew it, he was right next to me, his arm brushing against mine. I tried to stay focused on what I was doing, but when he leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to face him, and before I could say anything, his lips were on mine. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. It was raw, passionate, filled with all the tension that had been building since last night. I could feel his body pressing against mine, and it was like everything around us disappeared. There was only him, only us. He pushed me back against the counter, his hands roaming over my chest, my sides, as if he couldn't get enough of me. And I couldn't resist. I didn't want to. I pulled him closer, our bodies pressed together, heat radiating between us. I could feel his desire, and it only fueled my own. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision anymore. This was something we both wanted, something we'd both been craving. We didn't make it out of the kitchen. Peter pushed me up against the counter, his hands sliding under my shirt, his lips traveling down my neck. The way he touched me, the way his body moved against mine, it was intoxicating. Every touch, every kiss was charged with this incredible intensity, like we were both trying to make up for all the time we'd spent denying this connection. I couldn't stop myself from exploring him, from running my hands over his body, feeling the smooth curves of his muscles, the way his skin felt under my fingers. He was young, strong, and the way he reacted to my touch only made me want him more. His body was a work of art, and I wanted to memorize every inch of it. There, in the kitchen, we gave in to everything we'd been holding back. It was wild, intense, and completely overwhelming. I couldn't get enough of him, and he couldn't get enough of me. Every kiss, every touch felt like it was burning into my skin, like we were both trying to imprint this moment onto each other. It was like nothing else existed, nothing else mattered except for him and the way he made me feel. When it was over, we collapsed against the counter, both of us breathing hard, our bodies still buzzing from the intensity of what had just happened. Peter looked at me, his eyes dark with satisfaction, and he gave me that same lazy grin he'd given me the night before. We didn't need to say anything. We both knew what this was now, something more than just a one-time thing, something we both wanted to continue. But we also knew we had to keep it secret. There was no way anyone could ever find out about this. It was wrong, and we both knew it. But the desire, the connection between us, it was undeniable. Later that evening, we sat down together, finally addressing the elephant in the room. I told him we couldn't let this go any further, that we had to stop before it got out of hand. But Peter didn't seem convinced. He just smiled at me, that same knowing grin, and said, "Why stop when it feels this good?" I didn't have an answer. I wanted to argue, to tell him we needed to be careful, that this was crossing too many lines. But deep down, I knew he was right. It did feel good, too good to stop. And as much as I wanted to do the right thing, as much as I wanted to be responsible, I couldn't deny that I wanted more. So we made a deal. We'd keep it a secret, we'd be careful. But as long as we both wanted it, we wouldn't hold back. We'd give in to the desire, to the connection between us, and we'd make the most of the time we had together. It was dangerous, and it was wrong, but it was also exhilarating, and neither of us was ready to let go. That week turned into one of the most intense, passionate experiences of my life. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, sneaking around whenever we had the chance. It was risky, thrilling, and I knew it couldn't last forever. But for that week, for that brief moment in time, we were both lost in the heat of it all. And honestly, I don't regret it. It was one of the most exciting things I've ever experienced. Do I feel guilty? Sure. But would I do it again if I had the chance?